A group of protesters trying to stop the establishment of the Line 3 project faced what is almost certainly illegal attempts to break up their protest. I want to show you this video of a helicopter buzzing a group of activists. Okay, so I'm very glad that someone was able to take and upload that footage because it shows the helicopter doing that, trying to kick up dirt and gravel and wood chips to, I don't know, just annoy people, to maybe put out their eyes or something like that. That's what they did. And I was glad to see on Twitter that Cori Bush acknowledged that this is what Trump did to protesters in DC last year. I remember us getting incredibly angry in DC when he did that. It was unacceptable then, it's unacceptable now. And she calls on POTUS to protect indigenous organizers and their allies, not corporate interests. She says, stop the violence, stop Line 3. We're gonna give you details on the protests, but I'm glad that people can make these connections between something that's happening now, and there's not much talk about, Anna, with something that was done by Bush or Trump and his administration not that long ago.
Well, I mean, this is to be expected as the resist crowd is sipping mimosas at brunch, because all they needed to do was get Trump out of office and then everything would be great. Biden is just so different from Donald Trump. I mean, everyone is gonna experience a completely different treatment if they're activists. Everyone's gonna experience a completely different economic situation under Biden. Foreign policy is gonna be much, much better under Biden versus Trump. But what we see in a lot of different ways, and in a lot of different policy areas, is a continuation of some of the awful things that Trump did, right? So Biden and the people who were incredibly upset with the way that Trump treated these protesters should obviously be just as furious right now. Biden should do what he can as the president of the United States to step in and stop this from happening, but he hasn't done that. It doesn't seem like he has much interest in doing that. He might put out some incredibly progressive sounding proposals, but when push comes to shove, he doesn't actually fight for those proposals. And then he has his lackeys argue, well, what can he do? He has his hands tied. He's just the president of the United States. How could he possibly persuade people like Joe Manchin to go along with his policy? I mean, the whole point of politics is to persuade, is to negotiate, is to use carrots and sticks. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, on a vague tangent, I guess. But what I'm saying really applies to everything that we've been talking about politics recently. Just this unwillingness to change the very actions that were taken under Trump. What's the point of electing a Democrat like Biden if he's going to, again, extend the viciousness of the Trump era? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and literally use the same tactics to treat activists the same way. Shouldn't it be a little bit safer to engage in politics, to use your First Amendment under Biden as it was under Trump? Guess not. Guess not in this case. He's silent on this. He's not. He's refusing to do what's necessary on other pipelines that we had been given some indication back when he was running that maybe he would shut them down, but not so much. But thankfully, despite the helicopter buzzing that you saw right there, which should definitely be investigated, that cannot be allowed to stand. The protests continue. Actually, just this morning, the protesters seized a construction site with people like Jane Fonda and others there as well. They chained themselves to like bulldozers and things like that. I believe that that's already been broken up, and there have of course been a lot of arrests. But I wanted to give a little bit of background information about what's going on. So Stop Line 3 campaigners have said that there's over 1,000 water protectors that have been marching with indigenous leaders to the headwaters of the Mississippi River, several days into what they're calling a summer of resistance. The project that they're trying to stop, it's a $9 billion pipeline project, which if completed will carry up to 750,000 barrels of crude tar sands oil, the world's literal dirtiest fuel, from Alberta to Superior, Wisconsin. It is slated to traverse Anishinaabe treaty land without tribal consent, and while doing so, cross 200 bodies of water and 800 wetlands. But I'm sure this one won't leak like every other one does all the time. Anyway, so why is this happening despite all of the opposition to similar pipelines, effectively the same as many others, DAPL and Dakota Access and all that? Well, Jackie Fielder on Twitter, who's been on TYT, I believe she might have been on TDR as well, posted some of the Wall Street banks that are funding Enbridge, the company that is building this pipeline. And you can see a lot of money right there. All of the big hitting banks that you'd expect and others are there. Now, thankfully, there has been some coverage of this, Anna, but it doesn't seem like you have much faith that Biden is going to step in.
No, Biden has proven himself to be far too interested in serving the best interests of the Consumer Financial Protection. I'm sorry, no, not the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That would actually be fantastic. No, Biden seems to be interested in serving the best interests of the US Chamber of Commerce. That's what I meant. And the likes of Larry Summers, who he just held a private meeting with in order to hear his latest hot take about the need for austerity. Like Biden, again, rhetorically presented himself as someone who would be significantly different from Trump. But when it comes to the meat and potato issues, so far, with the exception of the coronavirus relief package, he has not delivered. So I am not expecting his behavior in regard to fossil fuels to change. And it's about time that we just call it what it is. And specifically, I think it's time to call the DNC out over how awful their strategy is right now in persuading voters to support them in the future. Because they told us this is an existential threat. We got to get Trump out of office. If we don't, it's just going to be a complete and utter disaster. Seeing a continuation of the Trump era under Biden honestly discourages people to support the Democratic Party, and they need to deal with that rude awakening.
Yeah, I agree.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.